topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Churchill said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." Kevin Hallinan believes that certainly applies to business. Welcome to Winning Business Radio, here at W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. And now, your host, Kevin Hallinan.
Thanks, everybody, for joining in again today. I'm Kevin Hallinan, and welcome back to Winning Business TV and Radio. We're on W4CY.com. We're streaming live on Talk4TV.com. That's the number 4. And we're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at Winning Business Radio, as well as we're available in podcast after the live show on pretty much wherever you get your podcast content. The mission of Winning Business Radio and TV, as regular viewers and listeners know, is to offer insights and advice to help people avoid the mistakes of others, right? To learn best practices. Those are the how-tos, the what-tos, the what-not-tos, to be challenged and hopefully to be inspired by the successes of others. Those are consultants, coaches, advisors, authors, founders and owners, entrepreneurs, people with expertise. But, virtually every successful person that I've ever talked to has had some form of failure in their lives and careers. So I say this every week. While we all have to get our knees scraped once in a while, I'm driven to keep those scrapes from needing major surgery. Let's endeavor to learn from history so we don't repeat it. I've spent the better part of my career equipping businesses to grow, and that's from solopreneurs to small and medium-sized companies all the way up to the Fortune 50. I've seen some of those companies win, and to varying degrees, I've seen some fail. And I've had the opportunity to rub elbows with some of the highest performing people around and with some who probably should have found other professions. And in my own businesses, I've had lots of success, but failures too. And I like to think I've learned a lot from those successes. So yeah, you're going to hear from me, but you're going to hear from guests mostly. And today is no exception. My returning guest is Sergiu Simmel, business growth coach. I really can read. Here's his bio. Sergiu Simmel guides founders, owners, CEOs of small to mid-sized businesses and their leadership teams on growing their business faster, easier, and I love this, with more joy than ever that was thought possible into the AI economy. He was born and grew up in Bucharest, Romania. He spent his childhood years studying both music and mathematics. In 1981, he defected from communist Romania and ended up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're going to hear about that. He started his career as a software technologist. Back in graduate school, he has a master's in computer science from the University of Minnesota. One of his 2 areas of focus was artificial intelligence in 1981. In 1991, Sergiu co-founded his first startup, a software company that produced an advanced database server. In 95, he co-founded his second business, providing technology-based compliance services to the financial industry. Before being sold about 2 decades later, this company had grown to a $34 million business. In 1998, Sergiu created his own practice, serving as a fractional chief products officer for 7 SaaS companies in a variety of industries. During this period, he founded his third startup, an e-learning company that pioneered the use of teleseminars for providing educational content. And in 2013, he shifted his focus toward business coaching, becoming the first EOS implementer in New England. Over the past 13 years, he's worked with over 75 businesses from 20 to 1,000 people in size, several of whom ended up executing successful exits. While starting with EOS, over time, Sergiu enlarged his toolbox to other business operating systems, including Pinnacle, Scaling Up, and 90OS, as well as a wide variety of other bolt-on services from Colby to red teaming to executive coaching to positive intelligence. As a perpetual learner, Sergiu has acquired over 10 such certifications. If you know him, that's no surprise. Since 2024, Sergiu has immersed his work into the rapidly changing world of generative AI, developing and delivering several services aimed at both upskilling business leaders in collaborating with AI, as well as working as an AI consultant guiding small to medium-sized businesses through their process of transforming themselves into AI-forward companies through his partnerships with Humans Plus AI, and more recently with WSI, a Toronto-based AI consulting and training company. Here's what the part I love. His professional mission is to restore joy in humane performance for entrepreneurial leaders. His passion is to impact people into living meaningful, full expressed lives. He lives in the city of Boston. He's the proud father of 2 grown daughters. I love this too. And he's madly in love with his 2 grandsons. Sergiu, welcome to Winning Business Radio and TV, and thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me again, Kevin.
Of course. You're always fun to talk to. Tell us about your daughters first, and then, of course, your 2 grandkids.
Well, it so happens that the day after tomorrow, I'm driving down from Boston to New York City and Long Island to see my daughters. So my eldest daughter lives in the city, in Chelsea, and my youngest daughter lives in Long Island with her husband and the 2 munchkins, as I call them, 10 and 8 years old.
That's great. And I know you're the apple of their eyes too.
Oh, absolutely.
So I want to know, and I know that viewers and listeners want to know a bit about your background. I want to certainly talk about the AI work that you're doing because it's fascinating. But how did you come to Defect? Tell us about that story and that journey.
Well, actually, it all started when I was in high school. And obviously, this show is only an hour long, so it will take a couple of hours to actually explain the whole context.
Right.
But to make a long story short, it was basically a kind of a sudden realization that not only I, really didn't like the communist regime and a place where it was run by actually a pretty harsh dictator. But also that, sort of like I had a feeling that I don't belong there. So I started the process actually trying to get out of the country. And one way was to get what was called an exit visa to go and visit some other country and then defect from there. It took about 7 years.
Wow.
So I was already in the university. The computer science program was a 5-year program. So finally, when I was in the 4th year, I received that visa, and will be on July 22nd of this year will be exactly 45 years since I boarded that plane. Was an Alitalia flight from Bucharest to Rome, Italy, and never looked back.
Wow. That's crazy. And it's 2026, and I don't think people think back to what it was actually like back then. So, all right, I want to hear a little bit about, I want you to share, because I know it somewhat anyway, about your musical background.
Well, so it was interesting. So when I came to this, I'm going to start actually in a different place. When I came to this country, I ended up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because that's where I had my closest family. I mean, beyond my parents back in Romania, which was basically my uncle, my mother's brother, and my aunt, and their only one daughter. So, first cousin. So going back, quite a few years prior to that, when I was 6 years old, my cousin, who's about 5 years older than I am, and with whom we relate like siblings, because we are both actually only children, left Romania. That was 1964. So, and she was she went to music school, and she was playing violin. So I turned to my parents and I said, she was my idol. I mean, I was, as you can imagine. And of course, at that age, since I was five years younger, obviously, we couldn't relate too well. So I was trying to follow her everywhere, and she was probably extremely annoyed by by it. But after she left, I asked my parents, I want to go and play an instrument. It was sort of like, to me, in a sense, I was following her track. So that's how I ended up playing, initially violin, simply because it was you couldn't find a half or three-quarter size viola. So I had to start with violin, and then I think about 2 or 3 years later, I switched to the instrument that I wanted to play, which was viola.
And you got pretty good.
Well, I got, so it's interesting. The instrument was cool, but what was really attractive to me was the rest of it. So music theory, music history. I was playing in an orchestra. I mean, all this kind of understanding music in a way that was beyond just enjoying a good tune.
In graduate school, it's in your bio. One of your 2 areas of focus was, interestingly, AI. Were you ahead of its time, or was the program ahead of its time?
Not really. I mean, artificial intelligence is a subject that most people don't realize. It's probably about 55 plus years old. So there were been, since the early times of computers, people have tried to start emulating the way humans think. And there were various kinds of models. Some of them were what in those days we were calling expert systems, rule-based systems. People were trying various ways to actually emulate that. And one of them was to actually imitate what we think how the brain works, which is a network of small things that get connected, otherwise known as a neural network. So I remember actually taking a graduate course in neural networks. Now, neural networks happen to be actually the kind of background model for what became, 40 plus years later, generative AI.
So we're going to get to those definitions in a few minutes. You started out here after graduate school in the software industry with companies like Wang, Samsung, and Oberon. You spent some time there, and then you founded Penobscot Development Group. So I want to know, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, what was behind your decision to start your own company at that time?
So prior to that, I was working for all these startups, including Wang, and I met at a kind of conference, a guy that ended up being my business partner, who was a brilliant technologist, and he had invented a technology that was not really commercialized yet, and so forth. So we started talking, and I got very interested in that. It kind of captured my imagination. So we actually started working together, and we started publishing papers about it, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually, we got a solicitation from Xerox Corporation.
Wow.
They were interested in embedding this into one of their newest products. And, there is this history because, we decided, so we should, create a business around it. So I quit my job, and he had a consulting practice, so he didn't quit anything. And we started actually the business, and this was my first $250,000 sale at the time to Xerox. So it was a kind of an OEM type of arrangement for licensing the
licensing.
So, I ended up going to California quite a few times to actually train them on how to use it, et cetera, et cetera.
Very cool.
That was the kind of a genesis of my first startup.
So then little while later, the second startup you founded, New River Investors Communications. Tell us a bit about that one.
Well, that was actually sometime I have to actually write a short novel about it because it's kind of interesting. That was a business that was created in the exactly opposite way at which we actually teach entrepreneurs to start businesses. We teach people, find a problem that people have, and then develop something that will solve the problem. Then you have a business, and then you test it and see if there is attraction. What I did, it was exactly the opposite. So a friend of mine, remember, the year was 94, 95. At the time, you could buy a computer, but you had to buy separately a browser, Netscape. that came on a CD-ROM or something like this. So I licensed a very interesting technology that allowed me to actually distribute large amounts of information on a single diskette with a browser embedded in the diskette. So then I started looking for applications. I had no idea where this will be useful, but I had the sense that people will need ways to actually distribute information. So again, to make a very long story short, I ended up partnering with two guys who just bought a diskette manufacturing business down in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And incidentally, one of their customers was Travelers Insurance in Hartford.
Oh, yeah.
And so I trained the salespeople to always ask, do you need to distribute some information? So one guy goes to, like a normal salesperson, to do maintenance on his account. And he's talking to this director of variable annuities, and he asked him, so do you guys need to distribute information? To which the director asked him, well, you guys can actually distribute prospectuses. He said, I don't know, but I'll call back my office. And so he got in the car, and he had one of those, if you remember, those big car phones. So he picks up the phone and calls me, and I'm in the office, and I pick up the phone. And he says, well, can we distribute prospectuses? To which I said, what is a prospectus? So again, a long story short, about 3 weeks later, I ended up, I created a demo with prospectuses. I actually hired somebody to type in hundreds of pages because it was all paper. So we went there and we demo stuff. The guy at Travelers, literally his jaw dropped, and he said, how much would it cost me for 140,000 copies of this? So we had no product, we had no pricing, no nothing. So my partner, who was basically the salesperson in this whole thing, he says, I think will cost you probably about $1.40 per copy. Now the cost of the paper equivalent was about $13. So he said, okay, send me an invoice. And that's how the whole thing started.
That's when you priced it too low. All right, let's take our first commercial break. I know, it's too funny. Let's take our first commercial break right here. We'll be back in just about 60 seconds with Sergiu Simmel.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Bestien Wealth Management is family-owned for 2 generations. They take pride in thoughtful financial planning and wealth management with a family feel for your closely held family business. Bestien Wealth Management focuses on deep planning, integrating your business planning with personal. They will help put your money to work and your mind at ease. Go to BestienWealthManagement.com for more information. Advisory services offered through Commonwealth Financial Network, a registered investment advisor. Join the Bestien family and let our family advise your family. That's BestienWealthManagement.com for your complimentary initial consultation.
Have you ever dreamt of being on the radio? Well, now is your chance. Be a radio show guest on the #1 ranked internet radio station and promote you and your business for free. Yes, you heard it, free. Business advertising right here on W4CY.com. Call 561-506-4031 now to get booked on one of our shows. That's 561-506-4031. Get your free advertising now.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
Welcome back, and we're with Sergiu Simmel, who is a business business growth coach. We'll tell you more about that, with a focus on AI. You then founded, back to the story, Our Learning Company. Talk about that for a moment.
So in Our Learning Company, I actually turned a hobby into a business, which is not unusual. I've always been, interested in learning, and I will probably be so for the duration, as they say. So there was a particular area of my life where I was learning a fair amount, and I turned that into a way of actually distributing that learning as audiobooks to a much larger audience. So we started actually with physical products, but as the time went, we ended up in this kind of new field of having learning done with in teleseminars. Well, now we call them webinars. In those days, the bandwidth was not sufficient for video, so it was just on audio, both through computers as well as on the phone. They were actually merged together. So I ran that company for about 7 years. 2008 actually hit us very hard.
Oh yeah.
I had to finally shut it down in 2011, and I went back to my practice, as you mentioned earlier, of being a fractional chief products officer for software or SaaS companies. Of course, all those terms are basically new, so I'm applying them retroactively to those days.
For sure. All right. Then you did some consulting, principal consulting roles, coaching. You founded, I'm skipping ahead just a little because I want to get to the meat of this. Then you founded Get Business Momentum in 2013, where, among other things, you helped clients install EOS, which is the entrepreneurial operating system, into client companies. And you joined WSI last year to add to your AI practice.
Right.
What are the most, first of all, as we summarize that section of the show, what were your most important 2 or 3 lessons from founding several companies?
So one is that you need to structure the company and to pay attention on how it operates. In fact, that was kind of the precursor learning that got me to be very interested in, to resonate very well with the book that describes EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, that I read around 2013, and that's actually got me to shift my focus on that. So most founders, they have an idea, they found a company, more or less either the opposite of what I did, or exactly how I did it for the first and the third business. And the company starts growing, and at some point in time, there is a disconnect, a friction between how the company functions. In other words, what kind of concepts, tools, and disciplines govern how the company actually functions, and the stage of development, the size of the company, either number of people or number of clients or revenue. There are many ways in which you can look at size. And that friction has several impacts, but one fundamental impact, which is it slows you down. So you cannot scale the company. There are these rules of thumb that say that most businesses, as they grow, they get stuck around $10 million. You know this rule of thumb. In fact, many of them get stuck at about $2 million or $3 million. And from there, they either disappear because the founders don't know how to actually grow them, and then the second category, they go up to $10 million. And again, they get stuck there. And they get stuck not because the entrepreneur or the founder is incapable of packaging their software, their products or services the right way, or to talk to the market the right way, or to even sell, getting into your area of expertise, but primarily because the company internally is in chaos. And the chaos comes from many places. Comes from people, topics, we can get back to that if you want, comes from, a poorly formulated strategy, comes from a whole bunch of failures in execution. As you know, most companies actually don't fail because they don't have the right ideas. They fail because they fail how to execute them properly. And also, sometimes companies get stuck or fail because the founders doesn't understand fully the financial, the enterprise value that he is building, to understand actually how to take the numbers, the financial numbers, and draw strategic conclusions to them. So that's basically one lesson that I took. The other lesson is that be careful with the people. In fact, now I tell my friends and prospects and clients that I personally don't believe that there are such things as business issues. There are only people issues.
I agree.
And essentially, you need to solve any people issues in order to actually grow. And people issues are difficult to solve. I mean, goes without saying that humans are complex. There are all kinds of levels of complexity there. They have to have the skills. That's the easy part. They have to have they embrace the right core values for the business. That's a harder thing. They have to have the right kind of attitude and the right kind of motivation. That's even more difficult thing. And also they have to approach doing things in a certain way that's actually compatible with their colleagues, with their mission. So all of that stuff creates a level of complexity that needs to be addressed, and systems are one solution plus a form of, a skill of leadership in order to actually address all those issues.
Yeah, I mean, the brilliance and skill of a founder, of an entrepreneur, is not always the same skill that's needed to scale.
Absolutely, absolutely true. And some founders, go all the way to, ending up with billion or these days even $1 trillion companies, and others, not because they are not intelligent or they miss something, is just not in their DNA.
Right.
They are, great inventors of products and services, but when it comes to actually, put a team together, a leadership team together, develop the leadership team, develop other people, coach them appropriately, so that the founder, him or herself, doesn't get in the way of actually growing the company. That's a totally different set of skills and, a matter of, in a sense, imagination.
All right. I want to get to AI in general and specific here. When we think of, when the common man, right, when I think of AI, what do most people think of in your mind?
Well, they think about something that seems to be similar to people. They think about, these days, in 2026, they think about a chat box,
right?
Whether that's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, that you can actually have a conversation with, and it seems to be extremely good with language. The answers are like brilliant. It seems to be knowing a lot of stuff. It seems to be able to actually put things together for you and to help you, speed things up. So it's a whole bunch of, qualities that seem to be really attractive and possibly able to solve various business or personal problems.
All right, let me get a couple definitions on the table. You mentioned, or you started to talk about generative AI. What is generative AI? Generative.
So it's a form of AI that is based on a technology that was invented actually at Google called Transformer. And if I were to actually explain it in the simplest possible way, I would say that it's a technology that knows very well what the next word, I'm simplifying here a little bit, the next word needs to be. How does it know that? Because it has been actually trained using enormous amounts of data. In fact, almost the entirety of the web or the internet in all kinds of ways. So everything that was captured, and there is somewhere that is accessible, so it's not behind some sort of a very well guarded wall, becomes a source for training. So given this enormous amounts of data, the software, the model, as it's referred to, is able to actually guess the next word, which means basically that it actually mimics very, very well how we humans, speak and reason. So now on top of that, modern or more recent models have very strong reasoning capabilities. So think of it as almost like two layers. One is the verbal part, but the other one is being able to actually connect things together, to make inferences, to actually understand, and I'm putting quotation marks there,
right.
To seem to understand where we are going, what type of results they should provide us with, and they do.
All right, what's machine learning?
Well, it's the learning part of AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ability to take information, large amounts of information, and actually learn from it, so that we can have the machine can actually create inferences, so the deductive inferences from those facts, and develop other ideas and facts from those existing facts. So it's basically again mimicking the way we think human brains work when they learn.
Now, what about this is the last of the three, large language models?
So these are the implementation of generative AI in a sense. So why is it a large language? Because again, it uses vast amount of information to actually learn. As to use the appropriate terminology, that it gets trained on. And there is a model, because it's a model of what we think the brain or the mind works like. So we create a model of that that's based on science or theories of brain science that reflect where we think, how we think those our brains actually work, and we're able to create an interface to that model that seems to be really close to mimicking human behavior.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take our second break right here, and then we'll come back and talk about the current work that you're doing with your clients and why it's so important. We'll be back in another 60 seconds.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Bestien Wealth Management is family-owned for 2 generations. They take pride in thoughtful financial planning and wealth management with a family feel for your closely held family business. Bestien Wealth Management focuses on deep planning, integrating your business planning with personal. They will help put your money to work and your mind at ease. Go to BestienWealthManagement.com for more information. Advisory services offered through Commonwealth Financial Network, a registered investment advisor. Join the Bestien family and let our family advise your family. That's BestienWealthManagement.com for your complimentary initial consultation.
The YP.com website is your local search engine. If you're looking for a good restaurant, it can help you find the right one nearby with ratings and reviews. Or if your car breaks down, you can use the YP app to find the closest repair shop. Or maybe you're just looking for something to do on a Friday night. Well, it has great local coupons for all sorts of things in your area. No matter what, when, or where, if you're looking for something, YP Local Search can help you find it. So go to YP.com or download the app to search local, find local, and save local.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
We are back with Sergiu Simmel. Sergiu, tell us about the type of client that you tend to work with, and then we'll talk about the work that you do.
So, to use the technical term ICP, or Ideal Client Profile. Over the past 13 years, the type of clients that I've been serving are businesses, or that I would refer to as small to medium-sized businesses. The way I characterize their size is primarily by the size of the organization. So somewhere between, say, 20 to about 1,000 people. The largest business that were, one of my clients was about a 900-person company. So that's the size. I don't have a particular vertical specialization like an industry or something. In fact, my kind of thirst for learning makes it actually fun for me to go from industry to industry and learn new things that I've never thought. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, for several years, I had one of my clients be the largest dairy farm in Connecticut. Well, I have to tell you, before that, I knew absolutely nothing about dairy farm. In fact, I've never actually even met a dairy farmer.
Or dairy cow.
Well, maybe. So that was actually very interesting. So I worked with companies from that to the opposite, which is, software companies and marketing agencies and you name it. In terms of location, my clients have been, all over the world, primarily North America, although I've had a couple of clients that were actually transnational. Of course, the majority were kind of in the Northeast, just by the nature of referrals and so forth.
So what are the problems that they've got, even if they don't know them yet? As you observe them, what are the problems that these companies have that you solve?
So we spoke earlier about limits of growth or scaling.
Yes.
So one fundamental problem, especially viewed from the perspective of the owner or founder or CEO, is that it seems that they capped their ability to grow or to scale. So no matter what they do, they just seem to be kind of, the term is dolphining, around 5 million or $10 million and so forth. So that's one thing. Again, from the perspective of the owner, because most of them are actually privately held, not all of them, but that I've worked with. From the owner's perspective, or can be multiple owners, and that's basically the world of family businesses. There is a certain level of frustration, not just with lack of growth, but also with, to put it bluntly, the amount of work that the owner, CEO seems to be actually doing, and at some point in time getting unhappy that they're working way too hard for the results. So that's another one. A third kind of frustration is the frustration with people that CEOs, let's say that way, may have. So it seems to be that their leadership or senior leadership team seems to be misaligned to their vision or where the company is going, or they are very siloed and they don't talk to each other the right way. They are not collaborative. There's a lot of sometimes drama and tension among the people. Again, people issues, right?
Right.
And finally, a frustration that things don't get done fast enough. So all of that stuff gets addressed in several ways. But if I were to kind of package the whole addressing, is that we have to actually get, again, their operating system to support the solutions. And it so happens that over the past 20 or so years, There have been a number of business operating systems that were developed and tested over, literally now hundreds of thousands of businesses. It's to be working well and kind of unleashing those businesses' ability to actually grow fast and run smoothly. Now, I'm not saying that all of those businesses succeed. There are many other considerations, market shifts and so forth, things that we cannot actually control. But the inner game of how the business actually operates is brought to the way I put it, to a kind of well-oiled machine.
When you say business operating system, help people understand what that looks like.
So, as I think I mentioned really in passing, one very simple way to think about it is that it's a collection of concepts, tools, and disciplines. Now, the concepts, I'll give you an example. The concept of a weekly team meeting. It's a concept, or the concept of a morning huddle. It's a concept, or the concept of a quarterly priority, otherwise known as a ROC, is a concept. Then there are tools to be used. How we actually, there's a tool, let's call it, for example, in EOS, there's a tool of solving issues or problems called IDS. There are tools to structure and describe the roles and responsibilities of different seats or jobs within the organization, essentially like kind of a org chart on steroids, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are the disciplines. The disciplines is basically how people acquire as individuals as well as groups, teams, the discipline of actually following these tools, using them appropriately, getting into a different rhythm of and actually maintaining that rhythm over time, being able to create goals that actually are aligned with the company's long-term goals, etc. So that's basically the business operating system. So another view of this is you can think of it as having 4 buckets. There is the people bucket, which is sometimes the most difficult to deal with. There's the strategy bucket. How are we actually going to market? How are we different than all the other competitors, et cetera, et cetera? There's the execution bucket, as I mentioned. And then there is what I would call the financial or the enterprise value bucket. How do we make sure that we constantly increase the value of the business?
All right. Now, this is probably a long question. I hope it is. A long answer, rather. I hope it is. How do you see AI changing, enhancing, making that whole thing work better?
So it's very interesting. The whole topic, I can probably speak for a couple of days about it, or have a conversation with you for a couple of days. But think of it, one way to think about it is that AI is forcing us to change the way we do work. I'll give you a simple example. So we are conditioned or trained from early ages, probably since we were verbal, that when we have a problem in front of us, we basically go and start trying to solve it. And we use our brain. If we are knowledge-oriented people, we use our brain and our capabilities, or our intuition, our deductive capabilities, and so to solve the problem. So that's how we implicitly go about solving, actually doing work. So the implicit question there is, here's a problem. How do I solve it? Well, that question needs to be changed, or it's in the process of the change in the presence of AI. To change, so instead of asking ourselves, again, this is not explicitly, it's not like we are actually doing those, saying those words to ourselves. Instead of asking ourselves, how do I solve this problem? The replacement question is, how do I use AI, or how do I engage AI to help me solve this problem? Now, it sounds trivial, but it's very hard because we are so used to doing things the way I described it. So Now, think about, so let's set that aside for a second. Think about now the business operating system. Well, what is this business operating system? It's actually this collection of, concepts, tools, and disciplines that help us doing the work. In a sense, it describes the way we do work inside an organization, not individually, but inside an organization, inside a team. So if you start actually thinking that way, AI becomes essentially a thing to infuse everything that we do with. And a company that, for example, the companies that get created now, where AI is actually brought in as plays the role of almost like electricity is everywhere. These are sometimes referred to as AI native companies, or a company that's been around for some time and has now the leadership has decided to actually transform it so that they can take advantage of the presence of AI. The same way in the early 1900s, business leaders decided to transform their business, and instead of using, steam engines, to use electricity instead. Now that thing is trivial now, but it took decades to arrive at that concept. So again, back to AI. These companies are, what I would call AI emergent companies, companies that actually, over some period of time, transform themselves. And there are all kinds of implications of that transformation if you actually start literally understanding what kinds of things you can do with AI. Now, having said all that, I have to introduce yet another complication, which is AI is evolving itself very rapidly. Literally every month or every 2 weeks, we have almost a different level of AI capabilities. So it's that proverbial, I'm flying the airplane while I'm actually building the airplane.
That's crazy to think about.
And that's a challenge. But it is reality as it is. So in my view, companies that are neither AI native, nor AI emergent have only one future in front of them, which is basically obsolescence. Because
somebody else is going to do it, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
There's no question. In any vertical, in any industry, in any sector of the economy, sooner or later, a competitor will figure out a way to engage with AI so well that not only their ability to produce things faster at a lower price and a better quality, because it's not just about productivity here, it's actually also about quality. In my own practice, I use AI every day, and one of the things that AI helps me do is actually, for example, ask better questions. I'm a coach, so my job is to ask questions, to guide my clients to figure out how to solve their problems. Well, obviously over the course of 13 years and 75 companies and, lots of sessions with clients, I've learned the art and the science of asking good questions, but I don't have all the questions in the world. And AI is helping me actually figure out new questions to ask so that I can better help my clients solve their issues faster.
It's also a productivity tool. Any process, well, I would say most processes that we perform can be automated. Whether it's creating invoices, for whether it's sending notices, whether it's inbox. I mean, an inbox is something that takes somebody a lot of time. I know there are tools for that.
Well, yes, and I want to actually mention something in that zone, which is we have to be also very careful there, because I also subscribe to the notion of what I would call the human in the loop. See, yes, we can automate a lot of stuff. However, at the end of the day, we are accountable. We, the humans, are accountable for what we produce. So when you get a silly email or LinkedIn DM, direct message, or some other communication that seems to come from nowhere and seems to be basically so perfect and has no context. It seems to be basically totally ignorant of who I am because it was produced by an AI entity, let's say an AI agent, if you want to use that term. And there was no human in the loop to actually make sure that the quality and the appropriateness of that message is where it is, where it's supposed to be. Then we have a problem, because at the end of the day, human judgment remains human judgment. The ability to distinguish between bad and good is not something that we can, at least at this stage, delegate to AI.
That's a great way to end. Believe it or not, we've got to end this. I feel like we're just getting started. It's such a deep topic, but what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, so first of all, I have a unique name, so they can go to LinkedIn and search for me, or they can send me an email at SSS. Yes, my middle initial is also S, at getbusinessmomentum.com.
Very good.
And we started from there.
Excellent. Well, listen, thank you so much. I know you're super busy. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for being here.
Very much appreciating you, Kevin, and have a great rest of the day.
You too. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. This is a show about business, both successes and challenges. If you've got concerns about the sales effectiveness of your company, whether your sales team is you or small or large, and you'd like to learn more about implementing Sandler in your business, and you're in Massachusetts or were referred by one of our clients, contact me at go.sandler.com/KJH or email me at kevin.hallinan@sandler.com. Otherwise, please visit sandler.com to find a Sandler Training Center that serves your area. At Sandler Training, I always say we develop sales teams into high achievers and sales leaders into true coaches and mentors. We're not a fit for everybody, but maybe we should have a conversation. Thank you to Juan once again for a job well done behind the scenes on the board. Be sure to join us next week. That's Monday, June 22nd, when my guests, plural, will be Jim and Deanna Varney, founders of Wavelength Coffee Roasters. I've been drinking it for 2 weeks. You'll like it too. Until then, this is Kevin Hallinan.
You've been listening to Winning Business Radio with your host, Kevin Hallinan. If you missed any part of this episode, the podcast is available on Talk4 Podcasting and iHeartRadio. For more information and questions, go to winningbusinessradio.com or check us out on social media. Tune in again next week and every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to listen live to Winning Business Radio on W4CY Radio, W4CY.com. Until then, let's succeed where others have failed and win in business with Kevin Hallinan and Winning Business Radio.